true.
Oh my gosh.
It's another dwelling.
No. More at Pueblos.
Oh.
Mommy?
Yeah, we've seen a few Pueblos. But before we talk Puebloan structures, there's a prologue to this story, and it's pit houses. Welcome to somebody's house in the year like 670. At first glance, it just seems like a hole in the ground, but there's actually a lot of familiar elements. A kiva is definitely the most recognizable element of a Pueblo house. I'll come back to why it's significant, but for now, just note, it is a round room below ground level, bench seating all the way around, and several notable depressions in the floor. Canyon of the Ancients had a really cool reconstruction of a pit house and an actual floor with utensils found as is. The entrance was actually via a vertical chamber off to the side, with a ladder descending. So looking from the top, it's key-shaped. Remember that for later. And then there was a transition. The Ancestral Puebloans went from pit houses on top of the mesa to these amazing multi-family cities built in the alcoves of cliffs. They farmed like nobody's business, and corn was everything. Up on top of these mesas was where they had their agriculture, and they would have handholds going up the cliff face so that they could go from their town and then scale these sandstone cliffs to get up to the mesa to do their gardening. They pick neighborhoods with views, let me tell you that. It's not just the alcoves at Mesa Verde that have these kind of cliff-dwelling neighborhoods. In Sand Canyon, about 30 miles west of Mesa Verde, we hiked about 4 miles back and counted no less than 8 different cliff-dwelling neighborhoods. What do you see over there?
Rocks. Yeah.
Okay, I am finally having an experience. I am finally having a transcendent moment here. I can visualize ancient people standing up on that ledge and starting to build that structure. Like, this is the first time that I'm actually feeling a transcendent sense of, wow, people stood up there, picked this alcove, laid one stone at a time, and like built this shelter for themselves. That feels really amazing. It's incredible how much they utilized the natural geological features when they did their building. And as cool as all of these alcove developments were, probably no place was a better example of creative utilization of geological features in building as at Hovenweep National Monument. What was so striking about this site was that it was moving beyond the alcove dwellings and into more freestanding structures, sometimes using these massive freestanding boulders as their foundation.
Stay back.
This isn't exactly the most solid foundation.
And that's a decent one. There's another one that's on that rock, a boulder that's off by itself, slanted.
And yet they stood here for like almost 1,000 years. When you think about all that had to change in a society to move it from being a hunter-gatherer group to being a farming and building group, it's pretty mind-blowing. Just think of all the skills that had to develop. selecting stones and shaping them. And by the way, figuring out layering clay and stone makes them more secure. And how about going to collect the timber that they needed in order to build these cities? Timber that came from tens of miles away and had to be cut down without metal tools and then transported without wheels. It definitely makes you wonder about the society and its values. Lots of tribes left an oral tradition, but what was special about this culture that it left not only that, but also enduring structures? So there's a lot we can only speculate on because the Pueblos seem to like to keep it in the family. But aside from horn and adobe technology, the one thing that really seems to define the Pueblos is the kiva culture. I told you we'd come back to kivas. When we were at Chaco, where things were definitely being built above the ground, it definitely caught your attention that the many, many kivas, including this great kiva, were below ground level. Below ground level. Kind of reminds you of a pit house, right? And although there's definitely a religious and ritual component to the kiva, there's also a lot of evidence that it functioned kind of as a giant communal living room. Maybe this was a throwback to the pit house era as a way to commemorate the stages that came before the ones that they found themselves in. And definitely as evidence that mutual cooperation and domestic harmony were the heart of what made them who they were. Okay, top ancestral Puebloan sites out of all the ones we've been to. So let's do it in categories. Top ancestral Puebloan sites, hike.
Bandolier.
Okay, bandolier. Coolest building style.
Mesa Verde was cool because it had like all the architecture, a lot of architecture.
I think Pueblo Bonito was the coolest structure.
Going into the kiva at Aztec was definitely one of the most, I think that was one of my most special Puebloan moments.
That was cool.
You say Hovenweep, it's an easy choice as the top choice. Why?
Because I'm most familiar with it. Because the towers in England, I can just appreciate it more.
Because it looks like a familiar kind of a structure.
Yes.
It's round, it's kind of turrety.
Yeah, the engineering side of it, building on top of what seems like a terrible foundation.
Yeah.
That's just so cool.
Okay, here we are at Yucca House, but it's like somebody's driveway, I think. Yeah, this is definitely the most low-tech national monument ever. Okay, this was the last national park site in the area, so of course we had to see it. Pretty completely undeveloped, despite being over 100 years in the Park Service. Since we had already been to so many Pueblo sites, we could kind of make out a few recognizable things. If it had been our first site, it would have just looked like a pile of rocks. So what do you think about this? You think this would have been the Great Kiva? This was land that was donated specifically to be excavated, which begs the question of why more development has not been done. I don't know, maybe I could take it as a metaphor that even for all the Pueblo exploration that we've done over the past month, there's still plenty more treasure to be mined. I found the coolest thing. Nava, you found a little piece of pottery. So let me see. Oh, that is so